I've been thinking about this for a while, and I want to have at least one video that covers the broad view of the components that you use to make a comic book. I managed to condense this down into what I call my 9 essential elements of what goes into a comic book. My name's Tim Larsen. I'm the creator of Mayfield 8, work for Action Lab and Comics Tribe, also known as the artistic end for Double Barrel. You can find my work at www.timsnotebook.com. Stick around to the end of this video and I'll give you a secret code that'll let you get for free a copy of Mayfield 8 number 1. 9 elements. They consist of 3 major components to a comic book: pencils, inks, and color. In turn, they have 3 subcomponents, which I'll get to in a minute. You'll notice I've been talking about just the art and not the writing. Writing is a separate element which can either control the art or be controlled by the art. However, both writing and art are under the direction and control of the overarching story arc. This is important. You have to decide the scale, length, and dimension of your arc. There's a big difference in writing a script or making art for one comic that's going to be one of 6 or one of 20 or just a one-off for a standalone story. By knowing the space you have to work within, you have a better idea on how to shape your story. Art and story work together, sometimes one being more dominant over the other. Let me show you 2 diagrams of what I mean.
Like it says here, how the art and script interact with the comic. I got 2 methods. We have the first method here where it's the script first, okay, and then we have with that script we have the beginning with the story arc, and then underneath the story arc we have the script itself, of course, and the script then would be dictating the artwork, and in turn the artwork has 3 components, and these 3 components with their 3 subcomponents are the 9 essential things in a comic book that the rest of this tutorial is going to be about. Okay, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You have the script, which is telling the artist what to do with the art, and then the art begins with penciling and lettering, then inking, then finally coloring. Okay, now we have another method where we do the artwork first, and that is, oh, excuse me here, okay, artwork first. We have our story arc, okay, and then that's the story arc is now dictating the artist. Basically, the artist is told what's going to happen in the space of the comic book or a series of pages that he or she is drawing, and what has to happen visually. So they're getting the pencils out of the way. Okay, but now you notice that the script was way over here. The script's going to fall down here with this method. Now the pencils, the script is now interacting with the pencils. The writer has seeing penciled pages with no dialogue, with just blank copy, and is kind of like filling out a crossword puzzle or filling out a form in a way. They're putting words to the characters in each panel. Okay. Now once that gets out of the way, the rest is kind of similar at the tail end here. Now we have the inking and lettering together, and then finally the coloring. The interesting thing about this is that both methods can be used in a comic book depending on the situation. You could very well have a comic book where there's a scene with 2 characters in a neutral place, like they're sitting in a restaurant or a diner, or they're riding in a car, or they're just walking down the street, and visually the action doesn't really matter what's happening, but it does matter very much what they're saying to each other. Okay, and so the artist is now following a script and kind of mixing it up, making interesting angles and whatnot to kind of pepper the comic book with some visually interesting stuff. On the other hand, if you have the artwork first here and then the script later on, you might have something where, say, there's a lot of action going on, the dialogue isn't quite as important as the visuals. Maybe a character is being chased by bad guys in a city and they're running down an alley. They're looking desperately for some kind of weapon to protect themselves with. They find a pipe. They take a swing at one of the bad guys turning around the corner unsuspecting, and then gets that guy knocked down, and then there's a fight. Well, the scriptwriter could easily just take a look at the art and write in either comments or sound effects, or maybe the hero of the story, she's muttering something under her breath, barely able to survive, and it can really be effective to let the artwork take the front seat and the script take in the back seat. So I hope this is helpful here, where you can see the two methods and the hierarchy in the pyramid. You notice that in both cases, the story arc is very important. And I've said this before, but it's okay for, like, say you have 6 issues in your story you're going to tell, and you're not quite clear what's going to happen in number 5, number 6, but you know for sure it has to get resolved. The bad guys have to either win or lose. It has to have some kind of a finality to it, where this is where the story ends. And if you know that, then you know how much ground you ought to cover in 1/6 of that. If it's going to be 6 stories, you know how much ground it has to cover in one. If it's going to be a one and done, essentially the script is the story arc. So it's, you know, it's not that important to have all the elements plotted out, but you do need to have what script you do have conclude to a satisfying end in and of itself. And also you're kind of limited to the space you have in it. Most comic books are like anywhere from 20 to 30 pages long, so your one and done story, really, realistically, you're thinking about anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes of a reader's time, and how much ground, how much material can you cover in that 40 minutes. That's why stories that kind of concentrate on a few characters and one interesting situation, one problem that needs to get resolved, those are more effective one and done type of storylines. That's about all I have to say about this. We're going to get on to, in the rest of this tutorial, the bottom third here of the pencil, ink, and color, and then turn the 3 subcategories of that.
Okay, now on to the 9 categories I was talking about earlier. Pencils. The 3 critical elements of pencil comic book pages are as follows: fitting with or directing the script. Either the script is written out and the penciler can visualize the blocks of script and their corresponding pages, creating a workflow, or it can work the other way too, with pages of pencil staking out the visual area for which the words will fall into. Second subcomponent of pencils is spatial relationship. Pencils have to allow for the characters to have their own space, to believably interact with their surroundings and other people or animals or creatures or what have you. You also need to account for the space for word balloons and narration box, almost treating them as characters in themselves. And finally, the third subcategory of pencils would be anatomy, perspective, and light and shadow. Every artist struggles with this. I do too. It's no different with anybody. But it's important to keep your eye and creative process aware of the structure of your people, how the lines define their depth, and the play of light and shadow on the world you're depicting. Categories, the second one would be inks. And the 3 subcategories for inking, I would say, would be 1, clarity and preparation. Inking over pencils means simplifying and getting rid of fussy details. You're letting go of the nuance and passivity of pencils in favor of sharpness and focus. Kind of sad to let that go, but you're gaining readability and better audience retention. 2, the subcategory of inking, would be style and elegance. Inks are where the comic book page shows off its true bones and structure. Inks are your reader's inside route to experiencing the creator's thoughts, dreams, and visions one-on-one on a creative level. And finally, 3, a subcategory for inks, will be black, white, or colored line. You have a choice of one of the 3. Here's where inks have a relationship with color, but it's also works as a linear element still. Last major third category with its 3 subcategories would be color. The 3 subcategories of color are as follows. 1, color needs to move the story along and sets the mood. Surprising to hear that from an artist, but it's true. Your reader's emotional state and understanding of your comic is influenced very strongly by its color. 2, another subcategory would be consistent style. The colors need to make a strong stylistic theme that's consistent from beginning to end. Clever stuff might seem cool to add in, extra shading, dramatic muscle tones, etc. But if it's just adding visual clutter, you're best off leaving it out. Then finally, 3, the subcategory of color, I would say would be harmony. The colors on a particular comic need to look right together for the purpose of reinforcing your story. And there you have it, 9 elements. To recap: pencils with its interaction with the script, spatial relationship on the page, anatomy, perspective, light and shadow, inks with its emphasis on clarity and preparation, style and elegance, and the choices that inks made of either black, white, or colored lines. Color, which moves the story along, has a consistent style, and has harmony and visually right aesthetics. Thank you for watching this. Again, for your free comic, go to my store, www.shop.timsnotebook.com, and select Mayfield 8 from the catalog. And when you get to the checkout, make sure to type into the discount code box Mayfield to get your free comic, shipping extra. As always, I really appreciate people who watch these videos. Remember to subscribe to get in your notifications of new and latest videos coming along. I have coming up down the pike a free comic strip concerning my new storyline that's set in the 1980s Boston, concerning 4 roommates living in Dorchester, Massachusetts. Then there's also, that's going to be called Dorchester Jays. Then there's Kill the Messenger, which is a more of a gritty kind of Mayfield 8 type of story, again, set in the 1980s Boston, concerning one of those roommates who, her name is Tabitha Greer. She's a bike messenger, and in a 6-issue story arc, she in turn gets in serious trouble with Boston and the mob and everything. People who like The Town or Whitey Bulger or any of that kind of like storyline will really love this comic. So once again, thank you very much for watching this video to the end. Again, shop.timsnotebook.com. Pick out Mayfield 8 #1. In the checkout box, type in Mayfield to get your discount code to get the comic at sale for free, like a $8 value. Thank you very much. You have a great day.